Hello, you guys. It's Liz, and hopefully somebody will show up here shortly. I wanted to talk today about 5G and how I think it might relate to the virus situation at hand. Hey, Karis, how are you? I'm going to just kind of hang out here for a few minutes, maybe a minute or so until people show up. How are you guys doing today? Hey, Ann, how are you? Hey, Addie. This is about the fastest I've ever compiled notes. I think I typed out almost 10 pages of notes in 3 hours. So hopefully I have this somewhat organized because my notes were everywhere. I mean, they were organized, but they were not like some on the computer, some in my book, some pulled out of magazines, etc. So, okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And then if anybody steps in late, they can catch up whenever they catch up. Because this will be on Facebook, I guess, unless they take it down. Because I'm probably going to talk about some controversial stuff. 5G and how it relates to the virus. And this is not something that I've heard on the news. This is something that I started doing some digging. But here's my opinion. You can't fight what you don't know and you don't understand. And many of you might be at home and sitting there kind of concerned about what's going on with the virus, not sure if you should be afraid or if you're confident or whatever is going on like that. But you can't fight what you don't know and you don't understand. And so the first thing I do is sit down and start researching and dissecting and trying to figure out what all this information actually means. Because the other thing is, if you have fear, it really affects your immune system. And that's not what you want right now. You don't want a tainted immune system while all this is going on. So I'm going to try to alleviate some of your fears. I've already done that a bit by writing the virus series, which I hope you guys have looked at. It is on my Facebook business page, which is The Wellness Prepper. And I encourage you to hop over there and take a look. I believe there's 8 posts that I've written. They're rather long, but there is a ton of really good information for you to glean how to be well. That kind of information is on there. So, but this 5G kept coming up in my research more and more, and I finally had to peel off from the virus research I was doing and dig deeper into 5G. And this is a topic that has concerned me for a while, but I didn't know enough about it to know how concerned I should be, or even know, anyway. So I feel blessed right now to be able to share my knowledge and share what I have learned with you. Nearly everything I'm going to present to you is hard on facts. At the very end, I will share my theory with you. But my theory is based on the facts I'm going to share with you now. There does appear to be a connection between EMF, which is electromagnetic frequency, and 5G, and viral infection. Before I explain that connection, I first need to explain what exactly 5G is and the kind of history that's been swept under the rug or maybe not even allowed in the room. So 5G, let me turn, I think I forgot to turn my, can y'all hear me okay? I hope my phone doesn't ring. I don't think I turned my phone off. Okay, nobody call me. Okay, so 5G. 5G means 5th generation, the next step in wireless technology. 5G signals use millimeter and submillimeter waves that are easily interrupted, and hear me carefully on this, and do not travel as far as 3G or 4G. So it's not something where you can be further away from antennas. In the opposite is actually true. They need more antennas closer together for 5G to actually work. So that seems opposite of like, well, why are they making it this way then, right? Well, hang tight and I'll tell you. Furthermore, 5G will emit a constant stream of radiation 24/7, 365. The U.S. Government Guide to Human Exposure of Radiation has not been updated since 1996. There are no studies showing that 5G wireless is safe. Let me say that again. There are no studies showing that 5G wireless is safe. There are studies showing significant harmful effects on people, wildlife, and the environment. In 1996, second time we've heard that, in 1996, the Telecommunications Act, signed by Bill Clinton, prohibits local authorities from regulating or prohibiting 5G installations on the basis of health concerns. Interestingly enough, they can limit them as far as where they might go if it affects the beauty of the environment. So sometimes you'll see a 5G cell phone tower that looks like a tree. But they won't do anything about if people have health concerns. The 1996 Telecommunications Act prohibits authorities from regulating or prohibiting 5G installations on the basis of our health. That should give you an idea how much clout the telecom industry has. It's bigger. The telecom industry in our government has more clout and is more powerful than big pharma, if you can believe that. So the primary purpose of 5G is not for better cell phone service. It is to allow telecom companies to compete directly with cable companies to stream video into homes, offices, and to compete directly with cable companies to stream video and to also increase the capacity of smart devices. Think about how many smart devices are now in homes. That would include Nest, Ring, smart meters, even some refrigerators are considered smart refrigerators. That's called the Internet of Things, the IoT. You might see it listed as that. Current cell and Wi-Fi networks rely on the frequencies of up to 6 gigahertz. 5G uses waves at frequencies ranging from 30 to 300 gigahertz. Again, these are not tested for safety. Okay? Not tested for safety. So we're jumping from 6 gigahertz, what we have now, up to the unknown of 30 to 300 gigahertz. Smart cell technology. Every cell provider will hang its own antenna, which is up to 6 cubic feet each. Enclosure, it'll be on a pole, and something the size of a fridge will be located close by. So that's kind of what you'll be looking for when you start to try to identify a 5G tower. The science of 5G on humans. U.S. military did countless studies between 1940 and 1960 and documented biological effects and impacts on behavior from exposure to wireless radiation. These studies showed a sharp rise in brain-related diseases. That was in 1940 to 1960. From 1953 to 1979, Russia was bombarding the U.S. Embassy with radio frequencies. This is in Russia. Our government, discovered what was going on, and I can't remember what they put on the building, but they put something on the building and on the windows to keep that from happening. But that's like 20-something years of bombarded radiation, and the government never even told the employees that were in that embassy what was going on. Instead, they started drawing blood and watching them and giving them an increase in pay for hazard pay, but they never told them exactly why. All of this information was released later. So many of the U.S. employees who worked in that Russian embassy got really sick, and some of them died. In 1973, the EPA and the American Public Health Association met to discuss growing concerns of non-ionizing radiation. That was kind of the beginning of the early era of microwave ovens. In 1977, the Journal of Microwave Power published an article demonstrating that exposure to this radiation could affect nervous system function at power levels below that which could heat tissue. Okay? In 1995, Dr. Henry Lai and Narendra Singh at the University of Washington published a study in 1995 showing that single-strand DNA breaks resulting from exposure to wireless radiation. This, again, is the energy produced by virtually all of our communication devices. For the purpose of this study, back in 1995, it was based off of a person who uses a cell phone for 30 minutes a day. Okay? The average person today uses their cell phone at least 900 minutes a month, not including a laptop or an iPad. So concern is mounting. Thus, the 1996 Telecommunication Act that prevents anyone from interfering with the placement of wireless antennas on the basis of its affecting human health. So they know this stuff. They know this stuff. And but the telecom industry doesn't care. In 1997, Dr. Lai and Singh published another study, this one showing that both single and double strand DNA breaks with low intensity radiofrequency radiation. They found that melatonin does seem to help block adverse effects of radiation. And this is one of the reasons that you should never, ever, ever sleep with your cell phone in your bedroom, your laptop on in your bedroom, an iPad in your bedroom. The routers should not be in your bedroom. All of these things, so important. This is so important. And Lacey, I'll show you things later on that will be helpful and some things we can do. But the other thing too is that, backing up a bit, they found that melatonin seems to help block the adverse effects of radiation. Did you hear me say that? So how are you going to get melatonin? If any of you are on here, I know a lot of you are Young Living users. MU Pro and the Sleep Essence that help you sleep, that is what you need to be using, okay? That is what you need to be using. Further studies in 1998 at the VA Medical Center in Loma Linda, Dr. Jerry Phillips confirmed DNA single-strand breaks when exposed to EMF at 813 megahertz. Megahertz is smaller than gigahertz. Gigahertz is what we're using nowadays. This is back in 1998. At 813.5 megahertz and at a low SAR. SAR is, I'll talk about SAR in a minute. SAR stands for specific absorption rate, and that's something that tells how safe a cell phone is. The average, megahertz is million, gigahertz is billion. We are dealing with billion gigahertz right now, not million. Okay. Moving on, Lennart Hardell, who's a Swedish oncologist, found that those who began using cell phones in their teens had 4 to 5 times the number of malignant tumors by their late 20s than those who did not use cell phones as teenagers. If your teen is using a cell phone, they need to be using their earpieces that are wired. Okay, I'll talk more about that later. Those who argue that non-ionizing radiation is too weak to damage people are relying on the pre-1996 information that was only based on the heat of radiation, not the microwave. Okay? So we are all electric beings, thus the frequency, think EEG, EKG, that's how they measure us when we go to the hospital. This is why our frequency is so important. And if you don't understand frequency and you don't understand your body's energy and electricity, please refer to my post number 5 in the virus series on the Wellness Prepper, because I speak a long time about frequency and how having a higher frequency is important if you're going to stay healthy and stay virus proof to the best of your ability. So please go back to the Wellness Prepper and read post 5 in the virus series to learn more about that, okay? So what happens when our electricity gets interrupted? Well, on a grand scale, in a big scale, you could end up with a heart arrhythmia. You could end up with a seizure or something like that. And we don't always know why that happens, but that's what big interruption of electricity looks like in your body. External influences, whatever they might be, can affect our electricity. Our bodies and our biology rely on tiny electrical charges combined with chemical signaling to control and direct responses in our bodies. When that is disrupted or affected, that's when problems start happening. And external influences include EMF and 5G. In 2004, the Reflex Project, and I'm getting to 2020, you guys, but you need to know all this information. In 2004, the Reflex Project, which included 12 research teams in 7 European countries, confirmed the ability of low-level radio frequency microwave radiation causes DNA breaks in exposed cells. And again, that is at an SAR of 0.3, a specific absorption rate, as well as its ability to activate a stress response. The production of heat shocks proteins. The stress response is a well-documented protective reaction of plants and animal cells to a variety of environmental threats, including high-frequency radiation. Okay? I'm just going to make a note here, and this is an interesting note. I find it very interesting that the SARS virus first emerged in 2002 in China, in Guangdong province, and I would be curious to know what kind of technology was introduced at large scale at that time. Again, SAR for this talk stands for specific absorption rate of a cell phone. You can think about that however you want. I'm going to go a little bit further. Everyone recognizes that lead is dangerous. It's listed as a group 2B carcinogen. In 2011, the World Health Organization recognizes EMF, the precursor to 5G, which is what we're dealing with right now is EMF. The World Health Organization recognizes EMF in the same category as lead, a group 2B carcinogen. In 2012, a study conducted at Yale University found that pregnant laboratory mice exposed to radio frequency microwave radiation produced offspring that were more hyperactive and had poorer memories compared to the unexposed control group. Dr. Hugh Taylor, chair of the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology and Reproductive Sciences at Yale University School of Medicine, examined the brain structure of the exposed animals and discovered significant neuron damage in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that controls behavior. There was zero damage found in the control group. In 2013, a group from the Institute of Environmental Sciences in the Netherlands published a thorough review of the ecological effects of radio frequency EMF based on 113 published peer-reviewed studies. They found that wireless radiation had a significant effect on birds, insects, other vertebrae, and multiple organisms and plants in 70% of the studies. In 2018, we're almost there, you guys. We're almost in 2020. In 2018, a 10-year, $30 million study conducted by the National Toxicology Program of the U.S. National Institute of Health sought to determine if exposure to wireless radiation from cell phones increases the risk of cancer. The conclusion by a 13-member independent panel of experts was that there was clear evidence of increased cancer risk, the highest level of scientific certainty. We should no longer assume that any current or future wireless technology, including 5G, is safe without adequate testing. So, my thoughts, and we've got a long way to go on this. If you look up studies, if you follow the money and you follow it deeply, when you group the funding of studies, you will find that the ones with financial gain will find no ill effects. Independent studies are nearly 100%, they find ill effects. Okay? Remember, you guys, cigarettes, DDT, Agent Orange, and asbestos, all those were safe at one time too, until somebody else figured it out. What are the health effects as the result of EMF and 5G? Let's start where it counts. Let's start with our gonads. Sperm. It's supposed to swim in a straight line. That's how it gets to the egg. It starts swimming in circles instead of a straight line. And it damages the DNA. It affects EMF affects the motility and morphology of sperm. Ovaries. It affects your eggs, both current and those of your future unborn children. It affects your liver, it affects your kidneys, it affects your immune system, it affects your melatonin production, it weakens the blood-brain barrier to allow toxins and other foreign objects into your brain. It damages nerve cell viability and function. It prevents oxygen from binding to hemoglobin. It damages the protective effects of the cell membrane, thereby allowing pathogens to enter a cell, including viruses. It causes blood to clump. It alters the calcium metabolism and utilization in heart muscles. And children who are exposed to cell phone radiation, okay, a child who holds a cell phone like this, the cell phone radiation goes almost completely from one side to the other because their skulls are thin and they have more water in their brains. So how would you recognize symptoms of EMF 5G actual damage? Note that EMF 5G damage has been recognized by NASA, the U.S. Department of Defense, and the EPA. Damage would include chronic headaches, insomnia, mental confusion, heart palpitations, and the inability to breathe properly. Think about that. The United States Access Board recognizes that people with EMF sensitivities may be recognized under the Americans with Disabilities Act if the symptoms impair the neurological, respiratory, or other functions of an individual that substantially limit one or more individuals' major life activities, like breathing. Question: if the answer is yes, shouldn't the Americans with Disabilities Act supersede the Telecommunications Act of 1996? I'm curious about that because I don't think that they're honoring that. Okay, facts about 5G in China. We're in 2020 now. This information is compiled from a lot of sources, including a really important video from Brigadier General Robert Spalding, who is retired now. And this is where it gets almost creepy interesting. So, smartphones. Smartphones are predominantly in the United States. They're Apple and Google. They have what Brigadier General Spalding says, a platform and a pipe, meaning they have it all, right? And it's meant to be, our cell phones are meant to be a private device. In 2009, China made a move to dominate the telecom industry. And there's a company called Huawei. It's Huawei. And they got hundreds of billions of dollars to develop 5G. And Apple and Google and Microsoft all gave them money to do this. Okay, other Chinese companies got involved and 5G emerged from China. This leads to the creepy facial recognition. Did you know that right now they already have billions of cameras in China to date, but China's goal is to have one camera for every 2 people in all of China. That's how much 5G is there. Okay. 5G is a computing and networking all wrapped up into one. And I'm going to have to read some of this. 5G is so technologically advanced that you won't even need your phone anymore to do anything, because everything will be facially recognized, so that all they have to do is recognize your face and bill your Uber or bill your pickup food or whatever. In a 3G or 4G world, you own your data on your phone. In a 5G world, there will be no opting out of your data, because your data doesn't exist on your phone anymore. It now is in the cloud. And who owns the cloud? It's not us. It will be all over the city, and you'll have no idea who owns your data. 5G will make your life more convenient, but at what cost? And I will talk about that in a minute. As an aside, Chinese citizens are required by law to carry a government-issued cell phone on them. Failure to do so will probably land them in jail, because that's what they do there. And bad things happen to them in jail. Wuhan, China, was the first city in the world, the first city in China, but also the first city in the world to be blanketed by 5G last fall. It was only weeks after that that people began dying from this virus. Going back to, you gotta breathe, people. There is a magazine, it's not a magazine, it's a newspaper. There is a newspaper called Epoch Times. It is a very, very, very good newspaper. It's an independent newspaper. It's EPOCH Times. I would highly recommend subscribing to it. They've done quite a bit of research on this particular topic. In the last 3 months, 21 million cell phone users have turned off their accounts in China in the last 3 months. The question is, if cell phones are required by law in China, then where did those people go? And I believe they've said that the virus has killed about 20,000 people in China. That doesn't make up for the 21 million cell phones that are now missing. And there is some other information out there, but I would suggest to you that the Chinese government is not being honest in the number of people who have actually died. And I would be remiss in saying that if it was caused by the virus. They may have lost 20,000 people to the virus, but I would suggest to you that the rest of the people whose phones have been turned off, is that there's a high possibility that it was not the virus that killed them, but rather 5G. Again, they are shooting for a cell phone 5G tower, one cell phone tower for every 2 people in China. So, is 5G worth the risk? Since it appears to prevent the binding of oxygen to hemoglobin. What happens when that happens? Oxygen deprivation occurs. It leaves us gasping for air. 5G and EMF increase cellular permeability of our cells to viruses, making it much more easy for viruses to invade our cells. And it increases the permeability of the blood-brain barrier, allowing all kinds of nastiness to happen in our brains. Switzerland and Israel, and I was talking to somebody from overseas a few days ago, and they said Germany, they thought, was doing the same thing too. They've halted their 5G rollout and forbidden it at this point. And of course, EMF and 5G is dangerous to the immune system. So now we're on to my theory. Viruses are excretions from a toxic cell. That's what they're seeing. That's what scientists, when they're looking for it, that's what they see, the result. They are pieces of DNA or RNA and a few other proteins. That viruses happen when a cell is poisoned. They are the result of something. This particular virus that we have been dealing with for the last few weeks, months, is not as virulent as originally believed. Okay? And I'm going to go through a few things here before you guys start saying, oh, no. There are more sectors of people who are more at risk than others. We hear about the virus staying active on surfaces for up to 12 hours. And I've heard the particle size of the virus being as small as 0.02 microns. That, by the way, is smaller than an N95 mask, which is the higher quality mask, can filter. And that means that it probably hangs around in the air for a while, especially if you're walking around in a grocery store or in the pharmacy or somebody, and like you may be 6 feet away from somebody, but you were in their airspace like right before that. So the groups of people we do need to work to protect. This particular virus, and there is a study on this, has been found to be ethno-specific. I don't hear the news talking about this. The virus particle is designed in such a way to attach to the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor sites. It is in Asian males, it is 5 times more aggressive to Asian males than to any other ethnic group. And my personal opinion is that when our President Trump was talking about protecting the Chinese, and we need to be kind to them, we need to protect them, he's talking about especially the Chinese males, because this study came out in January. This virus is 5 times more aggressive in Asian males than in any other ethnic group. Given that information, we have to analyze the mortality data a little more carefully, i.e., greater care needs to be taken to protect Asian men from this virus, like I said. For the rest of us, you can't take the mortality data of China, which is 99.9% Asian, and then go and look at Africa or look at the United States and say, well, Africa has 99.9% Africans. Maybe not that much, but I'm just throwing a number out there. I don't know. And the United States is probably, I haven't looked it up. I would guess that in terms of the Asian population, it's probably 2 to 3% maybe. And of that hopefully would be about half male. So that would bring it down to about 1%. And that's really the primary population that we really need to be concerned about. But if you don't take those demographics apart and you look at just everybody else, the mortality rate is actually closer to 0.0034%. Okay? And please remember too that 650,000 people a year die from complications of heart disease, and another 600,000 die from type 2 diabetes, both of which are lifestyle diseases and could be mostly eliminated simply by not eating processed food. And fear is an interesting thing. The media and advertisements and commercials and everything, they're like super quick to promote all the processed food you want to eat. And they never say as a disclaimer, oh, you might die quite a bit younger if you eat like this all your whole life. They never say that. So, but yet they're very quick to show fear and on this virus. I'm not saying the virus isn't real. I'm just saying that this is there's a little overkill going on here. So the second thing is, of course, use caution and basic hygiene, and make sure you're washing your fingertips, not the backs of your hands. No, the back of the hand doesn't matter. We should be using basic hygiene anyway. And right now, too, even if someone dies of complications of heart disease, diabetes, or any other disorder, if they have tested positive for coronavirus, that's what's going to be listed on their death certificate. I also just read an article that was very interesting regarding increased risk, especially if somebody received this year's flu vaccine twice. There's even some information that there's an increased risk if you receive the flu vaccine even once. So throughout the world, this is my opinion again, throughout the world, there are better ways to shop for groceries right now and to go to the pharmacy. There's curbside pickup and there's drive-thrus. Yet nobody is using them. I can say that because I've been working at the pharmacy, and some people are using the drive-thrus, but there's been a lot of foot traffic. So why has the government not come in and say, hey, everybody's offering curbside pickup. Why don't we just have curbside pickup for all of these things? Because the 6-foot distancing doesn't make a bit of sense. Okay. Here's where 5G comes in. What if the 6-foot distancing is actually about cumulative cell phone radiation, since 99.9% of us carry a cell phone, and if we're closer together than 6 feet, what if that is a cumulative effect of radiation on the people that we should be protecting? The Asian males, and I'm going to talk about some other demographics too. The population, aside from Asian males, the other population who will be most at risk for 5G poisoning or heavy-duty EMF poisoning, especially in a 5G environment, are those people who have a lot of metal in their bodies. These are people who have upped their receiver rate because they have a lot of metal in their bodies. Why? Who are those people with a lot of metal in their bodies? That will be people with joint replacements, old metal fillings, pacemakers and stents, vaccines that contain aluminum and thimerosal, In the elderly, that would include Prevnar 13 and some of the marketed flu vaccines. And you guys are not, some of you are not going to like this, but heavily tattooed people whose artwork is not created with organic ink. Most of the tattoo ink has a lot of heavy metals in it. So how do we fix these things? How can we fix these things? I personally believe, based on my research, that President Trump is aware of this impending problem and he is trying to fix this. I do believe that in my heart. But in the meantime, and his administration, but in the meantime, we need to do our part to make noise and make sure that that happens. I believe that one of the reasons the current administration has started the Space Force, I believe that when he asked for funding for the wall, that he's trying to also protect our sphere, the magnetic coating of our Earth, kind of, from the effects of EMF, and that 5G protection will be part of that funding. I really think that that is in the works, but it hasn't happened yet. Okay. Secondly, all of the DNA breakage that I talked about earlier, how do we fix that? I don't have the answers for that. The only thing I can tell you is in my studies and in my research that if you're already using Young Living oils, we talk about three things. We talk about phenols, monoterpenes, and sesquiterpenes. We start to get into chemistry there, and it's one of the things that really drew me into high quality, great essential oils. But those things give us the tools that we need so that it can make our cells healthier and that our DNA has a chance of fixing itself. And also, some of the oils actually do a really good job of helping the blood get oxygenated a little bit better. And again, if you've got oxygen failing to bind to hemoglobin, that's kind of an important thing. So if you're not yet using oils, Young Living oils especially, but would like to learn more about them, please reach out to me or reach out to the person that you know that uses Young Living, and please talk to them about this because it's super, super, super important for your DNA. The other thing I would recommend is there are petitions that you can sign online, and I'm going to give you some links to those. But we have to use our voice and let people know we have a problem here. You can also find out where cell phone towers are, and if you are shopping for a house right now or in the future, you need to know these things and you need to do your research. If, for the purpose of this particular virus, I personally, for me and Charlie, my husband, I would not agree to be hospitalized if it came to that. If I came down with a critical illness during this time, I would not agree to be hospitalized in a hospital that had a cell phone tower nearby. And you can find those cell phone towers online by going to antennasearch.com. You also need to figure out who your political leaders are. This is the time to do it. You've got time at home, and determine if they have ties to the telecom industry, because there's a lot of money that changes hands on this particular topic. And you can go to opensecrets.org and find out who amongst your representatives who's in bed with their telecom industry. You can also, radiation blockers for your home, they do exist. And hang on just a second. I would show you mine on my phone, but it's on my phone and I'm on my phone. So I have a radiation blocker on my phone. I have one on my laptop. I have one on Charlie's. I have one on his phone. And I will, safeconnectplus.com is a place you can get radiation blockers. DefenderShield.com is another one that I would trust. There are others, and there might be some really good ones, but you guys, there's also some really sham ones out there. Just like there's bad oils, there's ones where you're gonna get scammed and you won't even know it. You're just thinking that you're protecting yourself, and you're not. So please, 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 just like using oils and Young Living oils, use a product that is known to be really, really good. The other things are, until you get these things, put your phone on airplane mode when you're not using it. Turn your Wi-Fi off at night. Don't keep your cell phone on your body. Don't use the earbuds that I see everybody wearing nowadays, and all the kids want them too. You are shooting radiation right into your brain when you do that. Replace, if anybody has a landline and is using a cordless home phone, studies have shown that those are actually more dangerous to use than cell phones, that there's more radiation coming out of that. The antennasearch.com does work, Scott. I pulled it up right before I started. I think you might be spelling it wrong. Let's see, get rid of your Nest, Ring, Alexa, anything that is making your home a smart home. Really not a good idea, especially in terms of privacy. It's not a good idea. If you saw my post earlier yesterday about child trafficking, people are pulling child pictures off of inside cameras and putting that information on the dark web of your child with no clothes on. And I'm not saying that that's happening every time, but it is not worth the risk of that. So opt out of smart meters for your home. They have regular meters, the old meters and the smart meters. You can always call your electric company and say you do not want the smart meter on your phone or on your home. Come and get it. Get rid of it. And if anybody lives in an apartment, go outside and make sure you are not sharing an outside wall with a wall of smart meters that control your entire apartment building, because you will get very, very, very sick from living in an apartment with that many smart meters on the other side of your wall. If you do live in that apartment, you really need to move. So, do use your phone on speakerphone or like on a safely wired headset. This is actually not as safe as I would like it to be. I've got another one ordered after I read everything that I was reading, but it hasn't come in yet because my mail seems to be very, very slow. So anyway, that's it. I have my notes here, and links to studies are about 28 pages long. And because I feel like this is so important, I will post it's all in a Google document. I will post a Google link to be able to view this entire set of notes, the 28 pages of notes, so that you guys can have these, because I know I was talking fast. Anyway, that's it. And all of the links that I just talked about, every single one of them will be in this document. Okay? So that's it. I love you guys, and have a good day. And there's things we can do. So I'm not fearful of that, but I do think that maybe the whole 6 foot distance, there might be more to that than the fact that it's about the virus. So anyway, we'll talk to you later. Bye.